Good evening, everybody, and I am going to unmute you all. So, welcome. Hopefully, you can all hear me, and you can unmute yourselves and say if you want. This is the Ipswich AWS user group AWS recap. Before we do this now, we were probably planning to do it in person, but then the plan B's hit. So we had to kind of plan for the worst case scenario. Luckily, we're back to plan A, but because it was plan B at the time, we did this as an online one. But welcome nonetheless, and I hope you all have had a great Christmas and that you enjoyed reInvent, and we'll be talking about some of the key announcements. Stop me as we're going along. Hopefully the attendance will pick up a little bit. If not, we'll be putting this back onto social medias, etc. afterwards, so people can also catch this a bit later. It'd be good to have this as a interactive session. So let's start off. Tonight's agenda will be, first we'll go through the introductions, and just a few of them, really, not too much, and then we're into a recap. We are focusing away from the analytics and the ML bit, just because there's lots of big stuff there, and it's been covered quite a lot in other places. So we wanted to dig around some of the other bits and pieces and look at some of those. So we're looking at DevOps. We'll be looking at serverless. There's quite a lot in serverless. If you dig into a little bit more, a bit on compute, quite a lot in networking actually, and then into architecture, storage and databases, and then we should have Q&A afterwards. Okay, so first, just some introductions. So first up, we've got some support out there, people that offer us a hand. So as ever, we thank Inner Wisdom. We're using not their beer and pizza money, but we're using their webinar platform to give you this event. So thank them for allowing us to use that, and some of the social media activity around this event. AWS is still very involved and still support us, and we thank them for what they do, and also give us content and access to a wide reach of potential speakers and people in there to come see us in the future, which we hope get back to a more regular cadence, let's just say. New on this is the Ipswich Suffolk Tech Network. So some kind of a new announcement. We're working with them, they're working with us, so they help support us and other different meetups throughout Ipswich and Suffolk in various ways. And for example, they also help support Suffolk developers and also our local security meetup as well. So hopefully we can also get some more people from them, and also some of our we can go to some of theirs and we can get more of a cross-pollination of people, get more attendance, because we want to grow this user group this year to at least double its current number. So we thank them for their support. Next up, so we're probably going to go back. We'd like physical better. We like beer and pizza better than necessarily sitting in your 8-year-old's bedroom talking. So hopefully we'll arrange something late March, early April, maybe in person, after any speakers, any sponsors that would love to get involved. It can be from a whole range of use cases and customers or enthusiasm or that kind of thing. So please, if you want to talk about anything AWS at whatever level, and maybe your first 100 days in the cloud or whatever, please come along. We want to see everybody enjoying the cloud as much as we all do, and all the existing members of this community do. So please, and if you are a sponsor out there looking to get involved in the local tech scene, etc., for quite small amount of money, you can come along, sponsor an event, see us all, and buy us all beer and pizza, which is really does help with the physical events. And I think we all enjoyed that last time. We managed to get that our first physical meetup in 2 years just before Omicron hit, so that was good. So I mean, if you are a local sponsor, somebody locally who wants to sponsor us, then please get in touch. It's either to me, philip.bassett@gmail.com, or you can also get in contact with Lee, or I'm also on Twitter, so just catch me on one of those channels, and we'll be able to go to talk to you about what we can do together. Now, so we kind of wanted that physical meetup. Next in line, or the next up, would be Alex, one of our most passionate community members, has spoken before about App Runner, I think it was a few meetups ago. He's also giving a talk, and this is quite that cross-pollination thing. He's going to go and talk at the security, those who are Suffolk Security, is the local security meetup, basically. So go and support Alex and see him there, and look at this, and also get to know other people, and try and bring some of them back to see us at the AWS meetup as well. So that would be good. And then there's a rumor, slightly more than a rumor, that there's going to be physical summits this year, especially in Europe, by AWS. They're looking at it, so to be announced, but there will be a UK summit at the Excel sometime in the first half of this year, so keep your eyes out, and if that does happen, I'm extremely excited to go to that again, and extremely excited to meet everybody. So you'll have to hold me back, but I do promise not to hug all of you. But it's okay, because this week I've had COVID, so I'm now recovering from that. Thank God I had a mild one. I'm sorry for those people that have mild, but thank God I had a mild one. But I am free, able to hug everybody, but only if you want to. So that's that. So I hope to see at least some of that in the next kind of few months. And then let's get on. Let's talk about some of the reInvent features. So we'll be concentrating on the DevOps and serverless and that kind of side to give you a flavour of that. If you have any questions along the way, you should be able to unmic yourself, jump in. I'm using 2 computers for this night, so just bear with maybe a little bit. I'm trying to do this and one on the control at the same time. So first up, let's go through the DevOps, the announcements. Some of the key ones I've tried to do, like the executives. Edited a cut of this, because when I got all the decks from AWS, thank you very much for the deck, there was 80 odd, and I thought we would be here all night. And whilst we can be here all night, I thought we'd start and cut down 1 or 2 bits. So there was more announcements, but this is kind of some of the highlights. First up is Code Guru Reviewer. So Code Guru was out a couple of reinvents ago now. First, it was Java. I was lucky enough many years ago to be involved in the alpha of this, actually, and seen it progress a little bit to GA and then out. So that was good, and that came out. And then last year they released Python support, which was quite fruitful for various reasons. Hopefully they'll bring out Node soon. I can't believe they didn't actually bring out Node, but we'll see. But this year they brought out, and that's kind of one of the main missing features of it was security and security scanning. And in the world of Log4j vulnerabilities right now, that's paramount, obviously. So this one now scans your code commit, etc., for if you've saved your credentials, that kind of thing, to your code commit, which is a very, very bad thing to do. So it will tell you that it's a very bad thing to do, and then you have to go and sort it out. So I've used this a couple of times already. it picks up other minor things like maybe some files and binary file formats and that kind of thing to avoid. If you're using Python and Pickle, for example, it will pick up a little bit on that. So it's kind of a cool one. Probably one of those ones. Most of the time, it's quite expensive, and you probably want to just turn on to give you that extra safeguard. So I would definitely go and look at that a little bit more. Next up, less my forte, but for those who love Terraform, and I know there's a lot of you out there that love Terraform that we see, AWS announced Control Tower be able to roll it out. So now it can not only support CloudFormation, and it can support Terraform, and it supports or will support the ability to provide common policies against the two. So that's a kind of a good thing where people want to use Terraform and Control Tower. I think also Control, just before reInvent, also went live in some more regions as well. So Control Tower in itself is becoming a ever increasingly essential part of having a control over your AWS multi-account architectures within an organization. So go and take a look at that. Another two kind of announcements that were kind of back to back. One's Amplify Studio and Amplify. Mr. Kearns might come back maybe and give us a bit more on Amplify. I know he's played a little bit about that. But Amplify is basically AWS's easy front-end developer-centric creative AWS backend. So basically it handles lots of the, for example, you tell it what data you want to store and it will go and create an API and the underlying data stores to store, etc. You'll tell it how you want to serve your web page or whatever, and it will go and work out how to set up CloudFront and all of the static hosting, that kind of thing. To date, though, you've still done lots of design work in terms of UI access, UI design and implementation yourselves, and that kind of thing. With Amplify Studio, basically it allows you to be even more WYSIWYG. It's kind of a no-code entry point where you can start to build these apps with not even much front-end knowledge. So it's a kind of very good at prototyping, and for people that we take it seriously, it's really good. The other main kind of cool thing linked to this was that you can now kind of export it. The problem with Amplify was it was pretty much a lock-in technology. Once you were in it, it was very hard to actually then get what it produced out, and being able to actually then, when you wanted to get a bit muckier in the details of implementation, go into it. So there's now, it supports the CDK and also has exports to the CDK, so you can go and see what it's going to produce for you. I've got another visual on that, so it's very visual, as you can see, and it's there to help write apps quite quickly and demonstrate stuff, so that's quite cool. Next up, so the CDK was released, and they're now on version 2, the new improved CDK version for those people out there. It's supposed to be a lot more stable. It basically sorts out the isms that people have experienced with it so far. So it includes stable APIs, not unstable APIs, with the ability to include Debian if you need to, not by default. It has semantic versioning now, and it follows kind of the early release often philosophy, and they still want to encourage a lot of community contribution, but it's about the control around that and not having that necessarily completely available unless you turn on you want some of these development features. So it'll be clearly versioned, and you'll be able to know if you're going to have a breaking change when you upgrade, that kind of thing, because it's a bit sometimes when you upgrade you used to get like a stealth update dropped on you. So it's also kind of, again, just helps further develop and simplify the ability to write quite complex AWS solutions quite quickly. You can also use a assertion library now on it to do unit testing and that kind of thing, so you can test the outputs that your CDK gives you and that kind of thing. So that's a lot more of benefit. Then with that, and those who watch the keynotes, and I managed to watch, I catched all the keynotes apart from the infrastructure one by Peter. Werner's keynote had a new announced this, and it was also announced at the same time that they're going to reduce the construct hub, so you can now push up your own if you've created your own constructs. So for those who don't know, CDK is like 1, 2, 3 level constructs. Level 1 is basically pure CloudFormation hooks. 2 is more building blocks and based on top of that, and then 3 is like full, like I want to deploy a VPC and it will do everything for you. It'll go and build the constructs of the subnetting and everything for you, according to best practice. What you can do is develop your own constructs in an area of your choice, and now they're going to go with the hub where you can pull that in centrally, which is quite good. It's run, and there was an award given to one of the heroes, actually, which is quite cool. That was the first time someone got the Go Build Award. So there's now an Uber hero, basically, the #1 hero, basically, the guy from Ireland who's helped produce this and further CDK and everything. So that was exciting to see him get that. But there's, for the rest of us, we can also play with the some of the other great stuff out there. Next up is 2 kind of closely kind of passions of mine. So dating back 2 or 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now, when I first spoke at, I was just a speaker at this user group. I was speaking from a startup where we're doing lots of mobile gaming, mobile chat, etc. at the time. And one thing we always struggled with was we had a peripheral of things that told us how people were playing and using our app, and we had lots around how people were spending stuff in our app and things like day 1, day 2 retention, how when people come back and how often they play, that kind of thing. But what we always struggled with at the time was to know the kind of the performance, the experience of the end device. So how long a web page is loading, or how long the mobile app's taken to respond, how much data it's processing, are you using all of its battery, all of its CPU, that kind of thing. If you're using a lot of the CPU, for example, then you'll drain the battery, and that would upset people because you drain the battery, that kind of thing. So AWS launched RUM for CloudWatch. It basically gives you that ability to embed their CDK, sorry, their SDK into your app, and then you can get all that enriched telemetry coming down from the cloud. You can also integrate it with CloudWatch Service Lens and X-Ray, so you can get full tracing from basically from the UI trace all the way through to the API trace all the way through the backend, so you can get kind of full kind of lovely end-to-end this. So that, for me, if you're in that area where you've got real users using your app and you need to like make sure that it's responding well in a low latency kind of way, then this is going to be actually a really critical bit, I feel. So it's a bit like Datadog or anything you use on the server side, but it's for the client side. And it's called RUM. So the joke was, when's the Coke coming? Yeah. Don't like rum and Coke. I prefer JD and Coke, so I'll wait for JD. Incidentally, the other night I couldn't even taste JD when I had COVID, which was interesting. I could taste everything else. Maybe I was just drunk. Anyway, next up is CloudWatch Infidelity. I can't even say this one. Why do they do that? There's always a good chunk of these things that you really struggle to announce and pronounce, and it's always quite hard. I'm just going to pause 1 second. I've got the questions panel. That's a good shout. Thank you. I'll try and do. You could can you not, guys? Oh yes, so Alex has also got a talk at Norfolk Developers as well. So coming up on the 16th of, so I was going to, I'll send that out, send to all, I think. 1 second, it's very hard doing both these things at once. 1 second, I'll sort that out afterwards. I'll continue, but Alex is also talking at Norfolk Developers, and also they've got a conference that's happening later in the year or at the same time. So I'll send you those. We'll tweet them out anyway, so keep watching and tweet, and I'll send them out afterwards. Yeah, CloudWatch. This one I can't really supports basically A/B and feature flagging, again on an app, so on something that's distributed, so that you can then control what features on and off. So again, that would probably be used a lot with RUM. This like you turn something on and off, and you see the impact on the maybe on the device, that kind of thing. But it does also support back-end web and mobile apps, and it kind of supports app config and system manager as well. So it's kind of one of those ones that we probably have to play a little bit more to see how well it all integrates, but it's to do dark launchers and A/B testing basically within mobile apps. So there's a theme coming where it's a bit like Amplify, okay, cool. We got RUM, we got this. So they're playing a little bit more around with mobile. It's something AWS are continuously playing with, and have struggled a little bit to get completely right. We've got Pinpoint out there for analytics and push messaging and that kind of thing as well. So, but 3 years ago there was the mobile hub, and it seems more they're focusing on the individual components now rather than maybe some overarching thing. But linked to that was there was announcements for new SDKs. Here we go. So Swift, so that's the current language that you program OS X Apple devices and equipment in. Kotlin, if I said that remotely, like it's the Android for Android developers. It's kind of derivative of the Java originally Java, etc. But now Kotlin is their preferred choice. And anybody who's spent any time around AWS advocates will know how much AWS love Rust. So Rust is now a SDK that you get involved in, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of cool things people do with Rust. It's not something I've personally got involved in yet, but it's out there. So now you have C, Go, Java, JavaScript, .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, Ruby, Swift, Kotlin, and Rust. So enjoy all those SDKs. Personally, I think the Boto free SDK is kind of the worst one of the lot, and it's kind of like the CDK region actually, is because every time to release a new version, they give you all the services, and you can't opt out of which services you do or don't want to be included, which means that the Boto core library is just getting bigger and bigger. When you compare it to things like Java, where you can include a parent POM in your Maven or your Gradle, and then just the services you want. I feel that maybe the Python SDK needs to start thinking about to go down that route. So they do need to spend a little bit of time polishing some of these SDKs. They're a bit Python's like the JavaScript one, but not structured. Anyway, I seem to hate that for some reason. You undiscovered something there. Next, now I'm no Kubernetes man. Good job, because at some point the guys from Matrix will come along and actually tell us what Kubernetes is. I know it's running lots of Docker containers, there's some orchestration and overlay, so that's quite cool. And AWS launched Caterpillar, which was basically a revised way of how they would scale pods and that kind of thing. So it is open source Caterpillar, and this is flexible, high performance autoscaler for Kubernetes cluster built with AWS. It helps improve your application availability and cluster efficiency by rapidly launching right-sized compute resources in response to changing application load. Kafka also provides just-in-time compute resource to meet your application needs. So it's better auto-scaling basically for Kubernetes on AWS. I hope the guys at Matrix come along and give us a good talk on Kubernetes so we know what Carpenter is and how we can sort it out. Next up, ECR Proof Cache. Now, this is quite cool, actually. I've seen this a couple of times in the wild. The problem with the ECR public repo that it launched last year was nothing was on it. That's a bit cruel. There's quite a lot on it, but it wasn't everything on all the different labels, all the different versions of everything. So, like, if you're looking for the Fisher of Python library, it just wasn't there, or you had to do it, and there was then there's a peripheral of people trying to do that. This basically pulls through and has those public containers available, so you can now quite easily pull in Python 3.95 and 4.8 as your base image quite readily, and it's something I've used recently. So that's a lot more beneficial, really. So you don't have to muck around maybe pushing your own or finding them. You can basically change or put a prefix of what the library in front of your repository, your URL inside your Docker file, and then it will pull it down. No auth required as well, so you can just pull those images and use them as your base images. So, but don't forget them to scan them for Log4j would be my next top tip. Moving on, so there was repost announced in the developer tooling space. So this is basically like AWS Forums relaunched. I have actually played a bit with this, and it's a bit fragmented and it's a bit hard to understand who everybody is. And there's lots of stuff out there. Probably early days, and they've tried to load some of the content across, and it's a bit hard to find actually. But it's just it's to bring all that stuff back into and a new way of doing it, and it's based on a lot more community involvement, and you can get involved and earn points win you prizes basically, or at least a recognition in the AWS space, including, I think when I looked at it, I was able to sign my certs. I was there a while, but I was able to sign my certs, and you get points for that as well, and helping people out and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a bit like Stack Overflow as well for AWS. So go and check that out. It's completely free, available now. It does tie to an AWS account, so maybe use your personal account, but not your personal root account if you're doing it for personally, or if you're at work, maybe you have to work out which one of your accounts is your public account, maybe, or the one you at least want to be able to give the account ID away on. So just bear that in mind and take it from there. What it does then is spam you with lots of email when people post stuff, but you can manage that yourself. But it's kind of a cool extension to community. Now we just check the everything else again. Cool, everybody's still there. I keep feeling I have to tell you that you're unmuted so you can ask me questions. Anyway, serverless. So there's always really cool stuff with serverless, one way or the other. Looking on back to it, it's another cool year. First up was event filtering. If you want a more detailed thing, maybe we can get Luke or Luca from one of the AWS heroes that I know to come and give a talk about event-based architecture in AWS. I know he's doing one for a user group on Thursday. Actually, he's doing one for the Edinburgh talk. We might be able to get him for ours as well. Basically, this is about subscribing and filtering what events you get from EventBridge basically coming in, and which ones your lambdas will respond to, and which one it won't respond to. So the key really is to allow you to kind of control how your lambdas are called and when it's called in response to certain events. And the idea mostly is that it will reduce cost. Supported so far is Kinesis data streams, DynamoDB, and SQS. I suspect that's very early doors. I suspect we'll get that from most things as well. Lambda partial response. This is quite cool. I haven't played with it yet myself, but it's something that we're about to look at. Is basically you had to process everything and return everything, and as part of the SQS thing, now you can give like intermittent updates back to SQS, so it knows maybe that you've processed some of the calls, especially doing async, and not others, and then give you more, etc. So that's available for both FIFO and normal queues. So take a look at that. That has real kind of potential. Next one is kind of go on. Wow, someone spoke.
Yeah, I was going to say the Lambda Power Tools library for Python makes the partial batch responses really, really easy. It's all baked first party into that.
Nice. Yes. So Power Tools is an open source thing that wraps lots of the AWS stuff goodness for you. Available in Python. I think they launched a JavaScript version recently as well.
Yes, just got into beta.
Yeah. So check that out. Next, EventBridge data plane notification. So you kind of got this already. You could trigger lambdas from your buckets, etc. This is a more wider construct now, and faster construct that allows, when stuff is saved to your bucket, for you to kick off a number of processes like a step function, and then take it on and pay for a matched rule as well, so potentially a little bit cheaper. And it's just another way of triggering triggering lots of things from S3 when it was maybe the triggers on S3 were a bit limiting before. Again, it's kind of, there's now a preferable way of triggering events and listening to events on AWS. But this is EventBridge is really cool, and we use it quite a lot these days. This was one that crept past me. I didn't realize they'd done it. So they pre-announced that they're going to up the amount of temporary storage in the /temp directory on Lambda functions. That will be incredible, and probably can mitigate some of those. There's now a myriad of ways of getting around the Lambda package size, but there's another potential way of getting around the Lambda package size that you can put more into the temp directory, especially if you have to package up something like natural language kind of files, that kind of thing, to be able to tokenize text. NTK, whatever it is a good example of that. You have to go in and download stuff, or maybe you can strip out the data part of things like from scikit-learn or whatever and store it there instead of actually in your runtime. So that's a welcome increase, and should give you a lot more options. I found this quite interesting. So cross region support for EventBridge was announced in GA as well. So you can now have, for multiple accounts, cross region events coming in. This is probably ideal for when you have a security account or something like that, and you can capture all those events coming in and then do something, or just store them for audit purposes. So again, that's quite a good way of centralizing some of your responsibilities. So that's quite cool. And this is another one that crept past me. and I will mention something not announced at reInvent in a second, was integration with Athena console. So you can now run lots of stuff in loops and parallels and queries inside Athena itself, which is quite cool, using step functions. So, and have conditions and fork and back. So it gives you like a way of doing lots of mass parallelization straight in Athena, basically. And that's really cool. Another step function thing, it only came out just overnight, so it wasn't a reInvent announcement, but something that's got me really excited was step functions local came out overnight from AWS. You can now run a process to run your step functions locally, so for debug and development purposes, which will be immensely better than the only place you can do it is deploy it at the moment, and then you break something or it doesn't work or something like that. So that's also something to note on step functions. SQS, DLQ redrive. Again, so the whole D is automatically replays things for the download queue. So I've done this, and it's a real pain in the bum to do. That's me being polite. It's like if you've got 1,000, 2,000 things in your dead letter queue, to reprocess them, you have to set your visibility count to redrive count to 1, visibility, and then do visibility, and then you start doing batches and batches and batches. And you do batches at 100, and you do 100 batches, and it takes a while, especially if you don't do it programmatically, especially in the console, to kind of push everything back through to give it another go. This kind of release kind of solves that, allows you to push them back through better. So that'll be much better once you circuit break it, or there's a problem, you've created a problem, you want to redrive 1,000 messages or more. This now is the best way. Previously, you'd have to write a little script basically to run somewhere else that would take them off or trigger that visibility. So very much welcome. The next area, I'm just going to take a little bit more drink before it's going to be compute. There was a lot in this area, and I just cut it down to the 2 or 3 most exciting things for you guys. So there's the normal, we've released 1,000 different new instances type. We don't quite know how to use them, where to use them, because we launched 1,000 last year. So good luck resizing again. But there was kind of some key stuff. One of the key ones was Graviton free. So it gets better every year, this story. So the latest ARM processor from AWS is Graviton 3. Last year it's Graviton 2, 25% better. Graviton 2 was designed to push the price performance basically to a broad range of workloads. Now there are thousands of customers that use Graviton 2 based instances, but they are excited to launch Graviton 3 that provides up to 25 better compute. To do this, they launched also the EC2 E7G instance powered by Graviton processors to provide the best possible price for compute-intense workloads such as high-performance computing, gaming, video encoding, CPU, and machine learning inference. They can provide up to 25 better performance. So that's the gig. So yeah, if you're into ARM and everything's really cool, that's the latest Amazon's own silicon for you to go and play with. So I thought that's quite exciting as it continues to evolve. Don't forget, you can now use ARM on things like Lambda and etc. as well. So it's not just for instances these days. You can use those chips set types in other areas. The other one I thought was good was Workspace Web. So these allowed you, I'll skip on to a minute, these allow you to do web-based applications as workspaces. Instead of just logging you into a desktop, you just get presented with a web application. So, and it's created on demand. So it offers a fully managed desktop as a service offering, but more and more Workspaces offer a full managed desktop offering, but more and more applications that end users access are web-based. And they asked from our customers, AWS customers, was to simplify the secure deliver web-based applications without having to give each of those devices to the access to the application directly. So maybe you've got corporate, you're running, maybe not running Jira Cloud, you've got corporate Jira and you're running that in your own way for your own purposes or something like that. But what you don't want to have to go and give out is a desktop to everybody to get into that. So this allows you to give them direct access to that in a secure way. So if you've got lots of stuff that you're running in your private network that you want to get access to, then that's another way of basically granting users access. Networking, got some really nice stuff, I feel, actually, from reInvent. So first is Cloud WAN. If you've got Cloud WAN, however you want to pronounce it, you were able to use, basically it's able to manage all your different transit gateways, everything, all your different VPCs, VPNs, your direct connects, all essentially in one place. If you're anybody who's been lucky enough to do the network speciality, basically this makes you out of a job. I'm only joking, but it is a bit like that. It's a bit like there's lots of complexity of managing this stuff with BGP routing, address overlap, all that stuff. And basically Cloud WAN aims to give you a single plane where you can connect in your data centers and you connect in your corporate network and all your different regions, etc. So Cloud WAN basically simplifies that, and there's some partners that also have their technologies that work with it, so you can use them to help accelerate you. Next up was Direct Connect Site Link. So for those of you who have played Direct Connect, etc., there's a thing called Cloud Hub. So this is a lot like Cloud Hub, but a little bit different. So Cloud Hub allows you to connect your offices up to via Direct Connect or via VPN, and then it will push down the routing basically to allow you them all to connect to each other. That's what Cloud Hub does, so that in theory Office A to Office B can communicate with each other actually over the AWS backbone. However, you have to do that via your own VPC and your own central account, and they have to, it's in a very centralized manner. So SiteLink kind of does it at a local level. So if you've got two data centers connected into the same Direct Connect facilities or location, then instead of going all the way up to the cloud, they can communicate directly with each other at that location, so that they take bandwidth across that connection rather than using your Direct Connect connection all the way up to AWS. So that's basically what SiteLink allows you to do. Linked to this is Gateway inter-region peering. So this allows you to connect to other people's internet gateways, not internet gateways, transit gateways, to yours. So it's another way of being able to connect lots of networks together, because previously you would have to have shared inside. You could only share inside the same account structure. Now you can do that with other people's accounts across lots of different connectivity. So it kind of builds with Cloud WAN has given you ability to connect more and more different networks and sorts. Cloud WAN would then sort out your routing for you. So that's quite cool. So if you ever on the security exam, network security specialism, the network specialism, if you're on the network specialism exam, you're always going to get 3 questions on this topic: IP address management and how to implement an IPAM An IPAM is a IP address management system, basically, and the answer normally is DynamoDB. Whatever it is, the answer is DynamoDB for this. If you're taking that exam, that would be my top tip. But it's not anymore. AWS have launched actually a dedicated service to allow you to manage your addresses. So you put all your, I don't know, whatever your top one is, just your /20s or your /16s. You put all the acceptable ranges that you can possibly have for all your different VPCs that within the WAN again. And what will happen is then when you create a VPC, it will take the next available block basically from that. So you don't have to talk necessarily to lots of people to get it to know what the IP address, sign it off, go through the committee, whatever. This is the central repository that you can go to and say, okay, give me the next available one, and you can go and get the next available one, start using it, and that's then yours allocated to you. So that's what the this service does, and it's already gone GA, so that's quite cool. So there's kind of some nice heavy networking updates to just trying to make things simpler across the whole piece, really, because it can be very, very complicated, and there's lots of isms around the AWS networking construct, so you just have to know them, or now with all these services, they're making them a lot simpler for you. And then there was something that instantly blew me away, and I thought, wow, because I know what it's like, and that was private 5G. Don't worry, this is not a way of connecting your mobile phone to the network. This is specifically targeted at remote locations where it's very hard to get internet connectivity from lots of devices, that kind of thing. So the idea of this is that you deploy your own 5G network, maybe out to a wind farm, maybe like off Yarmouth. It's very hard to get the network back. So you deploy it to your wind farm, put your in each wind turbine, you put a 5G modem, etc., connect it all up to a base station, and then they communicate at that base station. So that's quite a short distance for them to travel, but it's a lot better for that 5G connection to travel. And then from that base station, is connected properly back up to the cloud and AWS, and you can get it in. So it's very useful for situations where you've got lots of that kind of internet lack of internet connectivity. And this kind of gives you that new ability. It's only available in the US, sadly, though, apparently, and it's in preview. So probably it's a bit like local zone for now, and wavelength will probably roll to Europe in the next year. So what's the biggest cost in AWS out there? Anybody know where you spend your most amount of money? Anybody in the audience know what's the most expensive commodity at AWS? It is data out. You can get it in more or less, you can get it in for free. Once it's in most situations you can play with it for free, but try and get it out, and it's really quite expensive. So AWS have now increased, based on pressure, the thresholds for the amount you can get out free, and has made the prices a little bit cheaper. So you can now get up to 100 petrol. You can get a free tier every month of 1 gig to 10 gig free, which is quite good. So they're just trying to make it. Data was like the lock-in hook of AWS. So now they've made it a little bit cheaper because on all the pressure from the other providers, etc. So the free tier, etc., is a lot more generous, I would say. So check that out. Next up, storage. There's quite a lot of storage. So next up is S3 Intelligent Tiering Archive Instant Accessor. This basically allows you to have so intelligent storing is a way to optimize your costs by moving data from hot, basically, storage to cold storage. and it automatically stores objects across intelligent tiering automatically stores it across frequent access, infrequent access, and all the way out to Glacier. This new ability allows you to get it all back faster when you need to. So it gives you a way of getting access to the instant retrieval for data when you need to. Price reduction, every year there's a price reduction these days. So up to 31% price reduction on the infrequent access tiers. So go and enjoy the saving they've given you. So that's kind of a top tip. Move stuff that you don't need to into one of the frequent access, and you'll save a whole load of money, basically. ECS snapshot archives. So this is another good way of ECS volumes when you snapshot them at the moment, they stay in your account. You charge the same amount for ones that you're using as ones you're to keep around for a long time. Now you have the ability to archive these things. So you maybe have your auto archives that you do quite often, and you want to keep that in hot storage in case you need to recover immediately. But maybe you want to have the ability to recover it when longer than 90 days in the past, that kind of thing. So it allows you to archive snapshots that are designed to be kept longer than 90 days, usually for regulatory or compliance reasons. The new archive tier stores your snapshot at 75% cheaper than the existing standard tier. However, restoring a chief snapshot takes between 24 and 72 hours. So basically, if you think how AWS Glacier works for S3, this is the same thing for basically EBS snapshots. And then the next one is, thank the Lord, they did this, because the amount of times I've done this, and luckily it's never been anything really significant, but there is now the EBS recycle bin. So it keeps that up for a retention period, so maybe 90 days or 7 days, whatever, but it gives you a, oops, I've just deleted it, get back option on your EBS volumes. So if you have stored lots of data on them, and you accidentally store it, delete it, maybe because you delete the instance and it's automatically deleted behind it, you can now go and restore that, and then go and attach that to another volume. So you have to, how it works is that you have to set up your retention rules and on the recycle bin, and they can be between 1 day and 1 year. And the rules can be account or tag based. Your deleted snapshots will then be retained for the recycle bin period, and just to be sure to you just need to be sure to recover the snapshots from the recycle bin before you present the present retention period expires, basically. So there you go, you have a new recycle bin. Last on the storage area is the Snowball tape drive. I'm lucky enough to actually something, I don't know if we actually showed you back 5 years ago, whatever, when we again, when I was involved in the one crazy startup, we had to move a lot of data. So we actually had a legit case to actually go and get a Snowball. So we got a Snowball, took to our London office, London data center, sorry, at the time, because we were moving out the data center, and we actually had a Snowball, and it turned up, and put all the data on it and then shipped it back, and that was quite efficient. So this is about tape drives. So this gives you the LVTL interface that allows you to maybe connect up your backup systems, so you can back up your legacy stuff for your tape drive to this now instead of the actual physical tape, and then when you're happy, you can then get that shipped off to S3. That dog, by the way, if anybody knows that dog, does anyone know who that dog is? That's a spot question for the audience. Whose dog's that? Anybody? That is Jeff Barr's dog, because that's Jeff Barr's office. And I also know that it's Jeff Barr's dog because he speaks about his dog all the time. So it is Jeff Barr's dog in that photo. Jepo always gets a snowball delivered to him, basically, when to play with, and that's his doggy. Databases, and there's a few things to kind of write home about here. This was a bit interesting. RDS custom. So now you can run your own custom database in RDS. So if you use something completely proprietary, there's now a way of deploying that through RDS. So that looks really interesting. I think they're specifically focused at Oracle and SQL Server customers where you're using something that's going down the stack and you can't just hook it into RDS. So again, it's ever and then anymore on Oracle and Microsoft, but this is quite cool if you have those needs to go down lower into maybe some of the engines. Maybe you need to really run an old legacy MySQL 5.5, something like that, instead of something more recent. Maybe that's an option to be able to, instead of run that yourself, you're able to run that as a through this. Okay, you accept that it's end of life, but you don't really want to get rid of it. But AWS say it's end of life, and you should be getting rid of it. So maybe that's another option, is that you can maybe run that yourself. So you don't need to worry about, it says you don't need to worry about the administration tasks such as provisioning, setting up, configuration, backups, or recovery. AWS can continually monitor your database to keep the workloads up and running so that you can focus on higher value application developer. You can focus on the high value development tasks such as schema design, query, and optimization. AWS Custom provides all the AWS resources in customers' AWS accounts provides all AWS resources in their account, enabling the customer to have full access to the underlying EC2 resources and database environment access. So customers can directly install third-party packages directly onto their database instance, as they would be if they're managing it itself. So it's really at that cusp of you're using RDS, but to manage it, but when you want to even go into it, you can then do so. Next up is DevOps Guru for RDS. Again, they're starting to get very long names for things. So this basically looks at all your performance stats on your database, what queries are running, what the hotspots are, where it's deadlocking or locking out, that kind of thing. And it goes and offers you a whole bunch of recommendations on how to improve your queries or how you're using your database. So definitely one to look at if you have if you have performance issues, and maybe it's because your intense write workload, that kind of thing. It's only on Aurora initially, which is a bit odd, because I would put the bet on most people that go for Aurora would have spent a bit more time making sure that they didn't have some of those concerns, and maybe rework some of their maybe monolithic architecture, which would have had that based on what Aurora is. So maybe it's a starting point, but it'll probably be more useful when it's Oracle or MySQL or that kind of thing. And maybe you are using a legacy app and you want to understand the data access, so maybe you can do something about it on a re-architecturing point. Next up, and this was good. This is extremely good, but missing one point, I feel, to make this the nuts. Basically, you can now have a infrequent access DynamoDB table. So if you're storing hundreds of millions and millions of rows in your DynamoDB, you can now, and you don't access them that often, you can now put them into infrequent access mode, which means that you'll save up to 60% compared to existing storage costs for some of those infrequent accesses data. So that's neat, but it does throw up lots of but how do I do this in the real world scenarios? And I was talking quite a lot to some heroes and some other ambassadors and other gurus out there, and The problem is you're going to have, in most situations, you're going to have a hot and cold table now, and you're going to have to manage that hot and coldness yourself and how things get promoted between the two. So maybe you want to keep like the last 5 months sale dates in the hot table, and then the last 6 years in the cold table, or something like that. Or if you're doing a game's quite a good example of game states. If somebody's played the game in the last 7 days, they're likely to come back and play in the next 7 days. So you keep their memory, keep in the hot table. But if somebody hasn't played your mobile game for 7 months, then they're not going to likely come back. But when they do come back, you want to pull it back. So you're going to have to develop it either with streams, landers, or something that manage maybe pushing the data between the two. What would be really good, basically, if this wasn't at a table level, this was at a row level, and basically rows that are hot and accessed in the last 30 days, whatever, are in hot storage, and rows that are not so frequently accessed and moved to cold storage. So maybe that's the next evolution of this, and maybe this is one step to that, and that would be awesome, because then that would probably remove some of those complications around how do you do a multi-table architecture. So that's quite cool. Next up, Redshift serverless. So I wasn't going to touch on the analytics per se, but this also fits in the database column section. So it's a little bit about Redshift. It's grown up. It's got really beefy. It's been updated. They moved to the new RA3 instance this year. There's the ability now to share data between instances. So they've done lots of work to improve it, and they continue. So this year they launched serverless. For those who don't have predictable workloads or don't want to have to manage a Redshift cluster, you can now, in preview, you can look at Redshift serverless. And not to plug the work too much, but there's a blog we released last week about this, where our CTO took it for a little bit of a test drive from the car park, so to speak, and said it's pretty good, pretty much like Redshift, but serverless. So it's kind of one sill, but we like that, and that's quite a good thing. I think the caveat was that if you're not using it for a long time, it's obviously paying you for the storage. So if you're using it after a while, maybe if you're not using it after a while, maybe consider deleting the data underneath it, so you're not charged for the storage as well as not being charged for the compute, was basically one of the outcomes. So go and check his blog out on serverless Redshift. It's an easy start, and basically you just create a database and start pushing stuff into it. It's really easy to get started with it. There's lots of existing data sets that you can play with, and it just allows you to go and easily set up a Redshift for your things. So look at the easy start to be able to start getting into BI and data analytics using the new serverless pay-as-you-go under the hood. So you don't need to. Easy start is kind of way of saying you don't need to choose your node types or how much workload management for what queries get priority. You don't have to worry about scaling the number of nodes, that kind of thing. Just go on, and it will start working out for you and start provisioning it for you. Next up with Redshift, there was materialized views. This is also in preview. So this is particularly focused at people that do lots of dashboard work around QuickSight. So with QuickSight, you basically have two options. You have Spice storage or direct storage. So if you're doing lots of fast analytics, you have to use Spice currently because it's fast storage inside QuickSight, whilst direct connection is to Redshift, and you've got the cost of going to Redshift and back to do stuff. And this is focused at workloads that have to use direct connect and has to use things like external tables and stuff. And you need to do lots of computation to get it into the fat table that you need to get it into with the dimensions you need to get into to be able to process your queries, and to make sure that also that is optimized as much as possible to give so that those queries are fast and so that your dashboards are responsive. So if you've got this, if you're using QuickSight with direct connection to Redshift and your dashboards are slow, this is particularly aimed at that offering. And I think the next one is probably getting towards the end now. Redshift Query Editor v2. So I can't remember, and forgive me, but Amazon acquired a company about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now, that had a really nice query editor, basically, and they have been working at bringing that technology into AWS, and this is now launched in preview. Query Editor 2. It is nice, well polished, slick, really enjoyable. My data engineering friends love it, so really worth, if you're doing lots of stuff with Redshift, really worth looking at it. And I suspect maybe in time some of this, the same kind of thing might get extended out to Athena, etc. And that really was it. Is there any more questions from the audience?
There was one thing I saw about the Lambda event filtering. I think was a fairly big caveat of it, in that when it wouldn't support, for example, having two lambdas subscribing to the same SQS queue and filtering different types of events to each, because when it applies the filter, it's applying the filter and then returning results to all of these subscribers, which, yeah, when I first saw the announcement, I kind of thought this could be quite nice to have one queue that's handling lots of related but not necessarily the same, entirely the same type of event, and then have multiple lambdas processing them as they need to. But as it turns out, you can't do it quite like that.
Yes, I haven't directly played with it yet. Luca, one of the heroes, he's got a new website out about, he's a guy that does a lot talking about event state, and he has a lot about that. And I think I didn't catch what he was talking about, because but he was talking about the other week as well. There was lots of gotchas about the event mapping and exactly how it should work. So I would encourage anybody to look at him. And anything else, people? Cool. All right. So, like I say, we are looking to do a meetup, probably March or maybe April. If you are interested in speaking, let me know. If you're interested in sponsoring, let me know. And we'll hopefully be able to get both sorted and be able to put on the event for you for then. In the meantime, please catch Alex's talk at the Suffolk OSWAP meetup, and also keep posted for other events coming through. With that, I'll wish you a good evening, and see you next time.